welcome to Austin's Anfield Angle, your AAA grade Liverpool FC podcast where passionate Copites resonate. Welcome to this Friday night session. We've got a great show in store for you guys. As usual, we'll cover the games that had just passed. We'll also cover the game that is upcoming. And then of course towards the end of the show, we'll get into some detailed conversations about some performances and maybe Arne Slot and some of the other stuff that's been happening around Liverpool. So as I said, the first thing we'll kick things off with the game against Brighton that happened last weekend. Liverpool winning 2-1. And then later on, we'll talk a little more about the midweek Champions League game against Bayern Leverkusen. And we'll have a bit of a pre-game look towards Liverpool against Aston Villa for this coming weekend. So let's get right into it then. First and foremost, Liverpool beat Brighton 2-1 thanks to goals from Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah. Ferdi Kedioglu's wonderful first half goal actually put the Reds 1-0 down at halftime. And to mount problems on top of that, Ibu Konate had actually a little bit of an injury to his right arm, I believe, or wrist. Looking from replays, it looks like during one of the attacks, he fell. And after falling, it looks like Van Dijk, his own teammate there, had accidentally stepped on his wrist. Of course, it can be very painful. Of course, on the replay, it looks like it's something very, very minor. But given how powerful these players are, how strong and how heavy they are, and how intense the game is, that stomp, even though it lasted for only a second, it would have really hurt his hand. So he was taken off at halftime, and Joe Gomez stepped into the second half. He did play very well in midweek, and he put in a wonderful performance once again. He almost scored twice, Joe Gomez. Joe Gomez actually is one of those Liverpool players. I believe he's one of the longest serving Liverpool players in the current squad. So Joe Gomez, like we were talking about, he is only 27 years old. He joined Liverpool in 2015. I believe he was 17 at the time when he joined Liverpool. He's gone on to make 143 appearances for the Reds. Of course, he's never scored a goal for Liverpool. But he did come very close to scoring in this game. He actually had 2 shots on target. One was a very powerful header that actually needed to be saved by the goalkeeper, and the other was actually a rebound shot, which was a very good attempt as well. So Joe, there was a bit of a joke about Joe Gomez. We're thinking about when he's going to get his first goal. He's been with Liverpool for close to next year would be 10 years. So hopefully he believes it's coming soon, and some of his teammates believe it's coming soon. I remember Jurgen Klopp at the time made a bit of a joke about it, stating that, he when he does get a goal, he should, I think he was going to buy him like a special gift or something like that. Anyway, that's a separate topic. Let's not go into detail on that one. Joe Gomez played really well. He was one of the 2 substitutes used at the game against Brighton. The other substitute was Curtis Jones. He stepped in. He performed really well once again. And, I think Curtis Jones, he's starting to really shine for Liverpool. He always came on as a substitute. He was always a young player when he first started under Jurgen Klopp. It was, and a lot of people knew that he had the skill, but they never really figured he would feature into the first team that quickly. But I think, now with him having a good, proper preseason, and the fact that some of the more experienced Liverpool players have actually left, like Wijnaldum and Thiago and Henderson, and all these guys have vacated opportunities. And with Harvey Elliott being injured too, Curtis Jones has actually stepped up and done a fantastic job. His energy that he brings, his passing, his vision, his defensive work rate, his attacking work rate. He would pop up on the wing. He'd pop up inside the box, ready for a header and tap-ins. He's got the pace because he's still really young. Reminds me a little bit of Steven Gerrard, of course, but Steven Gerrard was a lot more intense as a player. I'm really happy to see Curtis Jones performing that well. He deserves all the praise right now. He is glowing for Liverpool. Again, going back to the game, although those substitutes came in, it was getting a little bit nervous for Liverpool at halftime. And then when the second half kicked in, you could see Anfield was starting to get a little more vocal about their frustrations. And I think the Liverpool players sort of just took it up a notch and kicked it into second gear or third gear. And they started playing with really high intensity. They were going really fast on their passes. They were going really hard on their tackles. And that really riles up a crowd. So I was watching the game and I noticed that, and there was a cross from Cody Gakpo, and it looked like Darwin Núñez had actually gone in to get his head on it. But apparently when I checked the replay and when we looked at it again, it was straight off. It went straight in right off Gakpo's foot. So Darwin Núñez did not touch it. There was some claims for an offside because Núñez may have been in an offside position at the time. But VAR checked it and the goal was given. So 1-1, game on. And the moment that goal went in, you could see all the Brighton players, their heads sort of dropped a little bit, and Anfield literally erupted. It was so loud, it was so powerful that they always say Anfield is Liverpool's 12th man. So Liverpool were buzzing at that moment. And within the space of 2 minutes of scoring that equalizing goal, Curtis Jones picks up the ball in his own half, makes a quick maneuver to get through one or two players, picks out a pass to Mohamed Salah, and Salah cuts in on his left foot, and he takes a thunderous shot into the top corner, and boom, it was 2-1 to Liverpool, just like that. It literally blew the roof off Anfield, and it was a wonderful atmosphere. You could see that Liverpool were raring to go again, and they were going to try and score more goals. However, this time the Brighton defense, I guess, sort of kept things a little more tight at the back. They tried to contain Liverpool. They were trying to get the counterattacks in because they knew they had to get an equalizer. But I think that once that environment at Anfield changed and Liverpool took the lead, it was a completely different game. Brighton were a completely different team. Brighton actually showed up to Anfield. They were passing the ball confidently. They looked like they were there on a mission to try and do something and walk away with a point. And the fact that they took the lead first, most people were wondering and like, oh man, is this like a Nottingham Forest game all over again? Going 1-0 down, and there was a little bit of frustration kicking in. But, thank God, Arne Slot once again spot on with his tactics. He was very, very quick to make the right calls with Joe Gomez and Jones coming on, and it showed. It literally, immediately it showed. Liverpool turned up the heat, and Liverpool stepped up and got that win. We'll talk a little more about Arne Slot's tactics, but, he's been pretty spot on getting things right at the moment. I do believe he is still fairly young, but he does have his own approach, and it's been working out so far very, very well for Liverpool. So can't complain about that. Other than that, I think that win put Liverpool top of the table with 25 points. And I think they are 2 points clear of second place Manchester City. So the big result on the weekend was definitely Manchester City losing to Bournemouth by 2-1. And of course, they played before the Liverpool game that day. And of course, the early kickoff on that Saturday was Arsenal against Newcastle United in St. James's Park, where Newcastle shocked Arsenal with a 1-0 win. So both Manchester City and Arsenal lost their games, giving Liverpool a great advantage if they could win. And true enough, Liverpool did win that game by 2-1, taking them top of the table. And after 10 games, Liverpool are 2 points clear on the top. And surprise, surprise, it's Liverpool in first, Manchester City second, and in third place is actually Nottingham Forest, the team that beat Liverpool at Anfield. So they're stepping up and they're trying to prove that they actually belong in this top half of the league, and they're, playing some really good football. I think they completely deserve to be on that in the position they're in third place. They played some fantastic football. They've beaten some of the top teams, and they definitely deserve to be up there. So well done, Nottingham Forest. Other than that, I think Arne Slot was very pleased with the overall result. I think in terms of injuries, I think he did have one eye on the Champions League game against Bayern Leverkusen. He was pleased with the result, pleased with the overall performance. Once again, we saw Arne Slot taking off some of his players to give them opportunities to rest their legs, and given that some of them had played midweek. One of them was definitely Tsimikas, who was actually preferred instead of Robertson. That is something that kind of made sense for me. Robertson hasn't been playing his best football. He's probably 30 right now, and that's typically the age, when the legs start to take a toll on you, and I think we've seen that a little bit with Andy Robertson. And I don't mean this in any disrespect. He's a fantastic player. He's been so critical for us in defense and in offense with his runs and crosses and all that. But, I think at this very moment we need to manage his game time, and bringing in Kostas Tsimikas, who is the Greek Scouser, as the Liverpool fans call him, who is a very, very solid replacement. He definitely is capable to be as good as Robertson. They push one another very hard in training, and I definitely think he would be a sufficient replacement when needed. Robertson definitely will use his experience to step in some games, but I think we need to rest him a little more and keep his legs, save him for the more intense games for sure. So that was another change that we noticed. Arne Slot, like I said, he was very pleased with the performance, keeping an eye on the Champions League game. And that Champions League game is what we will be touching on next. So before we jump into the Champions League game, we'll be taking a very short break. Alright guys, welcome back to Austin's Anfield Angle, this Friday night session. We are now stepping into the next topic. We're going to be looking at the Champions League midweek game at Anfield between Liverpool and Bayern Leverkusen. There's a lot of build-up about this game. Bayern Leverkusen, of course, with their current manager being Xabi Alonso. He played for Liverpool for approximately 6 to 7 years, I believe. With Steven Gerrard, he played a big role in Liverpool winning the Champions League and the FA Cup. Of course, he went on to play in some of those very big games where Liverpool tried providing a strong challenge to the title in 2008 and 2009. Eventually, Xabi Alonso left to go to Real Madrid, where he played the remainder years of his career, and eventually then I think he also moved to Bayern Munich. How did he end up in Bayern Leverkusen as a manager. I'm not too sure. But of course, the other part of the equation that made this match a little more special was the fact that Liverpool had approached Xabi Alonso to become their next manager, basically Jurgen Klopp's successor. However, Xabi Alonso at the time, Bayern Leverkusen, let's not forget he did a fantastic job with them in the German Bundesliga, where they went the entire season unbeaten and they won the Bundesliga title. So Liverpool were really eyeing to get him into the team as the head coach, as the lead and the manager, but apparently Liverpool, went a separate way with Arne Slot. And at this moment, I have no regrets about that. So that's a little bit of context about why this game was a little more special. Bayern Leverkusen, with the performance last season and the fact that Xabi Alonso is coming back, that gave it a little more of a twist. The great news is Liverpool beat Bayern Leverkusen by 4-0. 4-0. That was the final score. Luis Diaz scoring a hat-trick and Cody Gakpo getting one for himself as well. Of course, this game, it was 0-0 at halftime. Bayern Leverkusen started the game pretty strong. They were strutting their stuff. They were passing the ball around. They kept composure. Anfield again was getting a little nervous and anxious. However, they at halftime, I think whatever Arne Slot told his players and made some technical tweaks, and that definitely made a huge difference in the second half. I think the crowd at Anfield started getting behind the team a little more as well. Frimpong, who is the right wing back for Bayern Leverkusen, he did have a goal disallowed, I believe. But upon checking, I think it was a handball, which is why that goal in the first half was chalked off. I think the intensity in the second half from Bayern Leverkusen dropped significantly, partly because Liverpool upped the tempo. Liverpool were starting to close down spaces, and you could start seeing the statistics changing with Liverpool getting more shots on target, creating more openings, and it was all just within a few minutes of the second half. And I gotta say again, I know I mentioned it earlier, but Curtis Jones, this boy has something special. He picked out a peach of a pass to find Lucho, which is Luis Diaz, and Luis Diaz had the composure to dink the ball over the goalkeeper. And that was a classy finish. And I know, everyone's played football and soccer, and we all know that this is something we all can do. But to actually do it in a Champions League game with 60,000 people watching you, that is no easy feat. To have the coolness and composure to pull that off, that was something that really wowed me. And that was the first goal, and once that went in, the floodgates were open. And then Liverpool started hitting them on the counterattack because they had to come out. And also what's real interesting is Bayern Leverkusen are set up themselves to be a counterattack team. They tend to always play with 3 defenders at the back. And they would use wing backs to help give them the additional support. In this case, when they went a goal down at Anfield, they needed to step up and push forward a lot more to get an equalizer. And when you do that, you're going to leave bigger spaces at the back. And you're playing at Anfield, the crowd's going to get behind the team, and you're going to make more mistakes. And as I said, the floodgates just went wide open. Cody Gakpo got one for himself. A tap-in, I believe. Luis Diaz got the end of a Mohamed Salah cross, controlled it in the box, and finished it. And I think Luis Diaz finally got a third goal later on in the game as well. wrapping up that hat trick and to secure the 3 points for Liverpool in this Champions League tie. Bayern Leverkusen, they were really caught by surprise by an interesting tactical change made by Arne Slot in the second half. So typically the key center back for Bayern Leverkusen is Ta. So he is typically used to playing against a strong center forward, a target man, someone who is going to be very physical and try to, bully the center backs off the ball. So, and I think he was expecting Darwin Núñez or someone to play in that role. However, Arne Slot took a very interesting tactical change, and he implemented Luis Diaz to play that center forward or striker role, and he was going against Ta. The cool thing about this is Luis Diaz is not a target man, so he's not going to challenge for headers against Ta. He's not going to challenge physically with Ta for the ball. Instead, Luis Diaz is so quick and he can turn really quickly in tight spaces. Of course, Bayern, with their formation of 3-5-2, when they drop down, it becomes a very congested defense and midfield with very little space. Having said that, it's really difficult to break them down. But with Luis Diaz being able to turn and move around so quickly, Ta, being the big, strong defender, could not keep up with his pace. And that was a very smart tactical move by Arne Slot. He took something, he thought about it, and he tweaked it, and it worked. And Luis Diaz also tends to drop into midfield to receive the ball whenever he's playing that center forward role. And that would draw out Ta from his position, allowing people like Salah, Cody Gakpo, or even someone else from the midfield to run into the box and be in a very good attacking position to receive the ball. So I was very impressed with that Arne Slot tactic right there. So very pleased to see that worked out very well. And of course, Xabi Alonso's return to Anfield was probably not as sweet as he would have liked. I think the crowd did give him a lot of respect and recognition for all the years he provided service for this wonderful football team. I think he got a big ovation when he walked in. And I saw, images online about Xabi Alonso jogging around Liverpool, going through the same routes he used to before when he was a player. And that was kind of nice, knowing that these former players still remember and cherish Anfield. Xabi Alonso himself, said Liverpool are, one of the best teams right now playing football. They are very, very strong. They're very, very quick. They're very good in controlling possession. They don't concede many goals. So all that's performed really well and, worked out really well, And Liverpool are definitely doing everything right at the moment. And just to add a little more, I think, the entire stadium was very, very appreciative of Lucho and Arne Slot's performance. So we all heard the fans singing Lucho's name or Luis Diaz and also Arne Slot's name, which was nice, Last year, I think we used to always hear Jurgen Klopp's song being sang. And right now, the Liverpool fans have actually acknowledged and accepted Arne Slot and given how well he's performing. So that's nice to see that they are acknowledging him. And he will be, very, very pleased with that for sure. The other thing I just want to touch on real quick, Mohamed Salah, once again, key player in the entire performance. He is now I think this season, Mohamed Salah has got 18 goal contributions in 16 games that he's played. So some of it's a goal, some of it's an assist. That's what it means. But, it's really outstanding form. For someone who's 32 years old, and I know some people are talking about his contract extension and when is he going to sign and whether he's going to stay and all that stuff. But given how well he's performing, I think that's the least he would want to have to think about. As all footballers know, the moment you start thinking about stuff off the field, that's when your performances on the field start to go down. So it was really good to see Mohamed Salah, always deflecting conversations about his contract. He's purely focused on his performance this season, and he has been doing so well for Liverpool. He has been performing week in and week out, and I am truly grateful that we're being able to watch his performances every week. He's got a great vision for passing. He's got a great shot on him. He's a little more preferred on the left foot. Doesn't take too much on his right foot, and not much of a person who scores with headers. But that's okay given the style that Liverpool play. And on top of that, he always has great leadership to coach younger players. And as I mentioned earlier, this Liverpool team is very different from what Jurgen Klopp used to have with those few senior players in there. A lot of those players have left, and that's why there's so much pressure about trying to keep Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson and Alisson and all these key players they want to keep to maintain that stature of leadership and respect. Of course, Mohamed Salah has a respect completely out of a different league, given how well he's been performing for Liverpool and how strong he's been for them over so many years. So, well done to Mohamed Salah on that. The other thing I want to mention, of course, we've mentioned all the offensive players and all the goals that were scored. However, let's not forget that, Coleman Kelleher, he stepped in when Alisson was injured. Coleman Kelleher, he's been a number 2 for a long time, and don't get me wrong, Alisson is a very strong, controlling goalkeeper, and his performances have proven he's one of the best in the world. But to know that you have someone like Kelleher on the bench with that level of quality and that level of capability to just swap in, and I think the players don't even feel the difference. He's made some fantastic saves. He's a young boy. He's really quick on his feet. He's really aware about what's happening. He's very vocal with his defenders. He's not afraid to tell Van Dijk or Konate what they got to do and where they got to be. And I think some of these probably learned from working with Alisson over the years. Alisson does the same, and Alisson is one of the best in the world. So just a little bit of an appreciation note there for Coleman Kelleher, someone who just swapped in when Alisson got injured, and he has been holding up his end of the deal so well. Liverpool have barely conceded any goals this season, and I think they're going to just get stronger as the weeks go by. So well done, Coleman Kelleher, and well done, Liverpool there. The Champions League. So the Champions League right now, Liverpool sit top of the Champions League table. A few weeks ago, I think Liverpool needed to only win 2 more games out of the remaining 5. However, now with this win, I think Liverpool now are pretty much guaranteed a top 8 place as long as they get another 3 points. So that's going to be pretty close to something they can achieve, and then probably they'll use the remaining games to field other players and get them to rest some of the more senior players and so on. So yeah, Liverpool top of the table, performing really well, and I think their next Champions League game will be against Real Madrid, November 27th, 2 p.m. in Central Time Zone here in Austin. So definitely you want to tune into that one for the next Champions League game. But that's still some time away. That's going to be after the international break. So we've got some time to plan our schedules to make sure we catch that one. And of course, as always, I'll have a podcast uploaded talking about tactics and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're done with the second section talking about the Champions League performance. I will put out a poll just so you guys can ask questions or highlight what topics you want me to talk about moving forward, or if you want me to change up the structure of the show right now. But all that will be in a poll at the end of the podcast on your Spotify, and you can let me know, and I'm happy to make some tweaks so that the show can be more enjoyable to how you people like it. All right, so we're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to look at the pregame build-up for Liverpool against Aston Villa this weekend, happening at 2 p.m. Central Time Zone. So we'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll talk to you then. Welcome back, guys, to Austin's Anfield Angle, and we're going into the next section of our show. We're going to be talking about the pregame build-up for Liverpool versus Aston Villa this weekend, November 9th, and it will be a game at Anfield. I believe the kickoff is 2 p.m. Central Time Zone in Austin. Check your local listings so you can tune in to watch that game. Just off the top of my head, some injury news ahead of that game. I think Diego Jota is still not fit. Federico Chiesa is still not fit. Harvey Elliott is still injured with the broken foot, and Alisson is still expected to be out as well. These are the only injury casualties at the moment. I do know that Ibrahima Konate and Van Dijk should be fine, despite Konate having that arm brace on. But Arne Slot has told us that he should be fine, and he did play that midweek Champions League game as well, and he seemed to not have any issues with that. So that's some good news. And of course, just off the, just talking about what the team selections have been in the past few games, we do know Arne Slot does like to rotate his team. He wants to keep his players fresh. He wants to make sure things are chopping and changing whenever possible. He doesn't want to create any potential fatigue in his players and so on. So definitely and this is just my opinion, given how Curtis Jones has been playing recently, great form, great ability, great passing, and of course, he does have an eye for goal too. He scored a couple goals already this season, so he is in great form, and I think he will probably keep his place ahead of Dominic Szoboszlai. Luis Diaz, of course, we talked about him in midweek, scoring that hat-trick. Most likely he will keep his place given how well he had performed. So, of course, we won't be too upset if he gets another hat-trick this weekend, right? But, oh well, one can always hope and wish, right? Let's hope for the best and hopefully he does do something positive on the night. I already touched on the Tsimikas and Robertson situation earlier in the show, but given that Tsimikas has been selected for 2 games back-to-back now, my guess is that Andy Robertson will start ahead of Tsimikas for this one. That way Tsimikas can get some well-needed rest and Robertson can step in. And I said this, Robertson's is in his 30s now, so I think he would definitely appreciate that little extra time to recuperate. And for the other players, of course, in goal, we'll have Coleman Kelleher for sure. And center partnership in defense would be Konate and Van Dijk. This will be their 10th consecutive Premier League game together. And remember, at the start of the season, Gerald Kwanzaa was actually in that center back position with Van Dijk. Arne Slot made a call, and I think at the time it was a very big call. He pulled out Gerald Kwanzaa, who is a very good defender, don't get me wrong, and he put Konate in there. And I think ever since then, Konate has just said, okay, you know what? If I need to pull up my socks, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to keep my position on this team. I'm going to keep my spot. And definitely he's performed so well. I think that partnership, Van Dijk and Konate, let's just touch on that real quick. Both of them are really strong in the air. And, Van Dijk has this ability where he plays in a very calm manner where you don't see Van Dijk panicking or sprinting for the ball. He's always in the right position. But sometimes, when you do have to apply that additional pace or aggression, that's where Konate comes in. I think he's so good at complementing Van Dijk's defensive style. And he's got pace, he's got power, he's got good awareness. He's not the best on the ball, and I'll tell you that for sure. But, it'll take a lot to get past him. And that's a key trait you definitely want. Yeah, so having said that, definitely that center back partnership is growing and it's performing really well. On top of that, the right back position, Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think there's no questions asked. If Liverpool are performing really well, they might bring on Connor Bradley, who is a very good understudy. So he is, I think he did have some injury problems, but we'll see what the manager decides. I think, Alexander-Arnold, he played consecutive games now, and he may even be given the option to rest. But my gut tells me he would be starting ahead of Bradley. Of course, Robertson, we talked about, will be stepping in most likely, given Tsimikas played back-to-back games. Gravenberch picks himself. I think he is playing fantastically well in that number 6 position, the center defensive midfield role. He's grown onto it. He's really quick on his turns. He's reads the game really well. He's not only there to make tackles and disrupt play, but he's also got a good eye for passes and good awareness of what's happening around him. He's done a really good job so far, so well done to him. Jones, yes, I think his form would make him a starting player for this game. Alexis McAllister should be back in the team. He's been a little bit in and out of form recently, I think, but he's a good player. He's got really good passing ability, good awareness. He is a World Cup winner, so definitely a player you want to keep in your team. Luis Diaz, most likely going to appear on the left wing, Mohamed Salah on the right wing, and Darwin Núñez most likely going to be playing up top. That's my prediction for the starting 11, and I think that's how the team will line up ahead of that game. Other than that, I think Aston Villa, they've done pretty decently well this season. They're in 6th place in the league, won 5, drawn 3, and 2 losses. So that recent loss coming 4-1 to Tottenham last week, and they'll definitely be wanting to bounce back, and they'll have their tails up. And definitely have their tails up because even in midweek, they actually lost that game. They lost their Champions League game for the first time. So the week before, Liverpool and Aston Villa were both tied in the Champions League table on the top. But Aston Villa lost, I can't remember to who, but because they lost their game, even in the Champions League, they've fallen behind. In the Premier League, they lost to Spurs last week, and I think that also is something that Unai Emery won't be too happy about, so they'll be looking to turn things around. They will come to Anfield, and they won't make it easy, but I believe Liverpool should have enough firepower to see them through. So we know that Aston Villa typically line up with the 4-2-3-1. We do know that John Duran has got a different dynamic compared to what a regular striker would be in Ollie Watkins. I think the Spanish manager Unai Emery, will look into to try and get a quick start at the game. Probably take an early lead, hit Liverpool on a counterattack. And let's not forget, Aston Villa do have pace as well, and they can hurt you when they hit you on a counterattack. They have a very strong goalkeeper, Martinez, Konza, Pau Torres, Carlos, Lucas Digne, all of them very strong in defense. Jacob Ramsey has been playing really well. Captain John McGinn is always a solid option. John Duran, like we talked about already. Yuri Tillemans, I believe he may miss the game. I think he has got an injury. If not, he may only appear on the bench. This Aston Villa team, they like to play. They like to play a high intensity counter attack game. And especially, exploiting using pace from players like Jacob Ramsey and John Duran and Ollie Watkins and so on. So this is what I expect to see. So we're going to see Villa show up to Anfield, and they're going to come pretty hard in the first few minutes. They're going to come out quick, and they're going to try and hit us on the counterattack. They're going to try and taunt the players. They're going to try and maybe stir up Anfield a little bit, because when Anfield is hostile, it's not as powerful as it usually is. We saw in the last two games in the Champions League and in the league game last weekend, when Anfield gets behind its team, Liverpool can rip teams apart. And it doesn't matter how big or how strong your team is, Liverpool can pull that off. Because they always call Anfield being the 12th man, and it just feels a whole lot harder being an away team playing at Anfield. So, Aston Villa, their odds for this game, I think they have played Liverpool a total of 55 times in all competitions. They have met 26 times at Anfield, where Liverpool have won 15, Aston Villa have won 5, and they've had 6 draws. I think their head-to-head record, the biggest aggregate scoreline was, of course, Aston Villa's win 7-2 in 2020. That was a shock scoreline. Liverpool's biggest win against Aston Villa was 6-0 in 2016. And in the last 7 times in the Premier League, Aston Villa have played Liverpool, regardless at Anfield or at Aston Villa's home. Liverpool have won 5 of those games, and there has been 2 draws. So the last time Aston Villa actually beat Liverpool was in 2020 when they beat them 7-2. That has never happened again, and Liverpool have never lost to Aston Villa since then. So my prediction, I think Liverpool will beat Aston Villa. I think it'll be a close game. Aston Villa may get a goal. My prediction is Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 1. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think, what the scoreline might be, and we can talk more about it in the next show. So that game is 2 p.m. kickoff. Once again, check your local listings. I'm reporting 2 p.m. based on Central Time Zones in Austin. And right now, we step into the final section of our show, where we discuss other topics that would be of interest. And I think the last couple of weeks I've been talking about Arne Slot, and I'm going to continue to do that right now because I haven't got any feedback from a new poll on what you'd like me to talk about. So let's talk about Arne Slot again. What I think he has done with the Liverpool team so far. And I'm not going to get too deep into this because I've been talking about it in the last couple of weeks, so I don't want to, repeat the same data and stats I've been sharing. But Arne Slot, since he's joined Liverpool, he has definitely taken them from strength to strength, implementing a few changes. For example, I think one of the changes that was quite surprising to me was the fact that players would stay with their families on the day before a home game. Apparently, this helps players relax a lot more and get them mentally more calm and collected before a game. I actually found that very interesting because to me, I personally would think if you are a sports person and you have a big competition the next day, yes, family is important, but staying with family sometimes can bring about personal discussions and personal topics and personal issues that may happen around. And I won't say issues per se, but you're involved in a personal day-to-day lifestyle, and there will be some events on a day-to-day basis that would require significantly more effort and mental preparedness, and maybe even induce a little bit of stress. So in my personal opinion, I don't quite agree with that. Having to stay with the family on the night before a game. But hey, I'm just an average Joe who played soccer for most of his life, and now I'm a podcaster. So I think Arne Slot's probably got a lot more information and reasoning behind that, and it's proven to show Liverpool's performances on the pitch. The other thing that was fairly interesting to me was one of the other things implemented was the no cell phone rule. So players, when they enter the training facility and they have breakfast and coffee, there's actually a no cell phone rule. And this was actually driven by Mohamed Salah. He is actually forcing players to have more communication and engagement to build better relationships, so that would actually transcend into a stronger chemistry bond for the whole team on the field. And this has definitely worked. You can see how Mohamed Salah is performing, how Cody Gakpo is performing. There's a different sense of togetherness about the team. Everyone wants to stick together, and everyone's there fighting really hard week in, week out. So that's a good implementation. I think that's one of the better ones for sure. And I don't disagree with that. I think it is very well implemented. So at least you get your players interacting with one another, especially given that there's so many international players from various backgrounds and countries, and at least it gets them all into one room to socialize and get more familiar with one another. The third thing I was going to touch on was Arne Slot's training routine. So, and I overheard this, and I can't remember from where. I'm guessing it was from This Is Anfield or one of the Liverpool FC websites. And it says that Arne Slot's training routine is very, very different to what Jurgen Klopp's training routine used to be. And what I've heard is, for example, he has this concept of body wake-up exercises on match day mornings. So this routine includes breathing exercises, light muscle movements designed for players, just so that they get ready for vigorous competition. Ice baths, of course, so there's sufficient muscle recovery. And it's also a huge part of his post-match recovery with the goal of maintaining freshness throughout the season. I know Andy Robertson has talked about it and how good it's making him feel for his preparation for every game. I do know there's a lot of gym work that's required right now under Arne Slot's training regime. He's very more focused on getting the fitness on a level that is fairly consistent among all players. He wants his players to train and focus on the football aspect rather than the physical aspect. I think Jurgen Klopp's style was a high tempo training session, sometimes twice a day, and those sessions were meant to, really teach you how to train your body for those high intensity games and how you can keep going at that high intensity for so long. This new structure, his sessions are less intense. They have a more balanced approach. There are some days where it's not as physically demanding, and of course there are some days where training sessions are a little longer. I think he allows his players more time for recovery and gym work. And of course, his philosophy revolves around, when you don't have the ball, there's little room for freedom. And if you need to focus on your hard work and defensive structure, maintaining discipline. However, in possession, players have much more creative freedom. So we try to bring that to fruition as much as possible. So creating more opportunity to hold the ball, creating more opportunity to control the ball. And he's focusing a lot more on the actual football and the game itself. I do know he's had some really positive impact on some players. For example, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Alexander-Arnold has spoken about this separately, where he's impressed with Arne Slot's adaptation, where he provided him with specific video recordings of matches and mistakes he had done before, and he gave very specific guidance and advice on saying, what happened in this game and what happened in that game. What you're doing, your body is focused on a different position, your angle is different. Try turning your body this way and try doing this that way, so you put yourself in a better position and a better chance of winning the ball when they try to dribble you. It was these kind of conversations that was really, I think, something that was never expected from Trent Alexander-Arnold, and into when it puts into context with video evidence and training methods and so on. He is a very meticulous man, and I think it's starting to show slowly that his managerial performance is adding a lot more value to Liverpool. So having said that, I think I'm going to put a cap on it for now. So once again, guys, this brings us to the end of our show for this week. Thank you for tuning in. As I said before, there will be a poll at the end of the Spotify episode. Please vote and tell us what you want us to talk about in the next show. As always, we do talk about the post games and the pre games, but we do have an opportunity for us to crack open hot discussion topics. We did launch our YouTube channel last week for the first time. So every episode on Spotify is on YouTube as well. Follow us at Austin Anfield Angle on YouTube, and give us a subscription and a like. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you can get notified every time we post up a video. Similar to that, there's an Instagram page that posts all latest updates from games, build up to games, lineups, any interesting news about players. We're working on that. So that's also another platform that you can stay tuned into. And of course, we enjoy having people on the show. We are working through some planning to get people to attend our first podcast with guests. And hopefully that can be done in the next couple of weeks. But until then, I really appreciate your support. Thank you for your patience. And I hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. That's about it from me today. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, and have a good night.